Nathan, are you ready?
Oh my goodness.
It's time.
I feel like I need a phone book.
Now are we good?
I tried, I couldn't figure it out.
Nathan, I can't hear you.
On the left? Oh, on the right.
Okay. Guys, we're getting ready to start. We're waiting for Zoom to open.
Appreciate it. Wears a lot of hats.
No attendees I saw so far? Barb, okay. And there's Bill. Okay,
Recording in progress.
that's my signal. All right, let's call this meeting to order. This is the city council meeting for the city of Fairway, Kansas. It is Monday, July 8th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Nathan, we have some announcements this evening.
Yes, just a couple. There was a missing word on the proclamation, so the mayor caught that. It has been added into the one that she will sign and read this evening. And then we have added an agenda item. Last week, Bryce discovered that we never formally included Catherine Lyon Flora Park in our list of designated parks. So in order for us to enforce the rules and regulations of the park, we have to designate it as such in the municipal code. So that is on the dais for you this evening. You'll see the red line of the current draft and then what is proposed in ordinance 1809, which will be item C on the agenda. So you do have a new agenda in front of you this evening as well.
Okay, thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the proclamation. This is Parks and Recreation Month. I would like to read this into the record. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Fairway, and whereas our parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. Whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a space for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate, outdoors. I do that every year. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas the City of Fairway recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreational resources. Now therefore be it resolved by Mayor Melanie Hepperly that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Fairway, dated this 8th day of July, 2024. Next are the monthly reports of the standing committees. Consolidated Fire District Number 2, the chief comes quarterly, so he is not here this evening. We also receive the reports from him quarterly now. So there is not a report in your packet this evening. Administration and Finance, Nathan?
The Administration and Finance Committee did meet on June 26th, and I've outlined just a brief summary of the discussion in the report here. There was a considerable amount of time spent discussing recent salary surveys that were conducted by the League of Kansas Municipalities and the Mid-America Regional Council. And the committee determined that the staff should fall, ideally and generally, the staff should fall between the 60th and 70th percentile of the market. So we are preparing to roll out some adjustments to get to where the committee thought the staff should be generally. We also discussed a crossing guard request from Mission. They have been fully funding the crossing guard for Mission Highlands at 62nd Street. They've asked us to split that cost with them, so we'll be adding about $7,600 to the 2025 budget to cover that expense. And then we also discussed a number of security enhancements that we're going to be rolling out for court in fourth quarter of this year. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions for administration.
Are there any for Nathan? Dan?
I'm just curious more than anything. Why is that not a school expense, a crossing guard?
It does not. The cities throughout the area pay for crossing guards.
On that note,
Jenna?
Jenna, Ward 4, I wasn't at the meeting, but that sounds fair to me. I imagine that half the students who go to Mission Highlands probably live in Fairway? What percentage of students live in Fairway that go to Highlands?
I don't have that, I don't know exactly, but I would say that it is likely, since it's the crossing intersection of 62nd Street, almost everyone that uses that intersection is coming from Fairway.
That's what I was going to say, is
Yeah.
we used it,
Yeah.
and it's,
Yeah.
money well spent in
Yeah.
my mind.
Any other questions for Nathan? Okay, Finance?
Financial situation is good still. Sales tax is leveling off, as we talked about at the committee level, although we are still above 2022 levels. Some of our months are just a hair behind where we were at the same month last year. We did discuss the 2025 budget of the other funds, so the Stormwater Utility Fund, Highway Fund, all of the other funds that are outlined in the financial report. You'll see we discussed the 2025 budget proposal for all of those funds, and we wrapped up the meeting by discussing the revenue neutral rate hearing and the budget hearing that we will have to have at the September City Council meeting. So you will see under new business this evening is the resolution to establish the date of the hearing. I just want to be clear when we get to that, that's all that resolution does, is establish the date for the hearing, and it says that we will not have a mill levy rate higher than 19.930. So we are setting that cap with this resolution.
All right, any questions on the Finance Committee report? Okay, thank you, Nathan. Police, Chief?
Thanks. I'll just highlight some of the events over the last month. The first thing I want to talk about is the number of people that are running from us. That is still occurring. However, with good police work, the first occurrence of the month was just on June 1st. We ID'd that subject. One of our officers ID'd who the individual was that was driving that vehicle, and they now have felony warrants for them. Later on in the month, I mentioned this at the last council meeting because it was around the same time of that meeting. that an individual fled from us. They drove through the lawn at the house by the church. We went into Missouri, and then discontinued because of numerous circumstances. That individual was also identified. The federal agencies got involved in that. They located that individual. He was taken into custody with a SWAT team. That individual was on methamphetamine. He also had a gun with a large amount of ammo with him, and now he has a bunch of federal charges stemming from our pursuit. So that happened. And then here's a good story out of something that was bad. A neighbor hadn't seen one of their friends that live close to them and called us to check the welfare of them. We went to the house and then located that gentleman in the backyard, and he'd been down for an extended period of time. We don't know how long, but that call saved his life. So we were very grateful that someone was paying attention like we should be doing in Fairway. So that individual is alive because of that phone call, and the officers checking the welfare of that individual. Other things that we did is there was a car that ran from Prairie Village that ended up pulling into a driveway off of Mission Road. That individual exited the car, and as we were going to the area, we saw that individual, located him, took him into custody. There was a gun located in his vehicle as well. That same night, another vehicle pursuit happened in Mission and involving a stolen auto. It ended up behind some businesses on Johnson Drive, and we assisted in apprehending that suspect as well. There was a auto theft that occurred off of Chadwick. The individual left his keys in the car. It was a brand new truck that was recovered the next day in KC-Mo with damage. That's pretty much a summary, except for I want to mention one other thing, excuse me. We did stop a vehicle that again had firearms in the car, which is not uncommon, as you hear me say every month now. However, these individuals had these firearms legally. However, the reason why I'm mentioning this is the way that they were carrying them. And their activity was extremely suspicious, but because they owned the firearms, we had an investigation in reference to that car stop, but we weren't able to take the firearms. But I'm going to mention it just because of this is the way, or the type of things that we're encountering. The driver of the vehicle was armed, I believe with a handgun, but the passenger was actually riding in the vehicle with a long gun between his legs. There is no reason for that. I mean, there's no reason to be riding in a car with a long gun between your legs, ready to go. So with that, I'll let my report stand, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Ow. Lee?
So, Lee Story, Ward 1. So, Chief, you mentioned the truck theft on Chadwick, and I'll reiterate, don't leave your keys in your car, but I received a really nice note from the individual whose truck was stolen, and he told me about, and I'll pass this along to you, Chief, but he talked about how officers were on the scene within a few minutes of his call. Another officer showed up immediately thereafter and walked the family, made sure they were okay, and walked them through safety protocols and what was stolen and garage door openers and other keys and whatnot. And then a few days later, he received a call from a third officer talking about they had recovered the truck with his golf club still there, so everything had a pretty happy ending. But he sent a very nice note, and he wanted me to pass this along, and I'll just read the last part of it, where he says, each officer was pleasant, professional, confident under pressure, and provided some calming guidance throughout the process. I just want to thank them and provide some recognition of our Fairway Police team. So I thought that was nice.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that, Lee.
Mayor.
They're always welcome. Jenna?
Hi, Chief. Oh, thanks for all you're doing out there. I just had a question. When it seems like there's a lot of warrants that we are the ones who end up effectuating them because the person gets pulled over when they're in the limits of Fairway, do we as a city pay for that, or do we pass that cost on to the city who's issued the warrant? in other words, are we taking it's obviously a burden on us, so is there any kind of pushback to or like, does that other city come and get the person?
Yes. Typically, that's how that works.
Okay, so we don't have
Yeah,
to
so
detain the
we're
person?
not typically taking or housing in Olathe on a
Okay.
warrant from an outside jurisdiction here. It's
Okay.
their responsibility to come and serve the warrant or advise us to release that individual. with
Okay,
however they handle whatever their protocol is. There is an uptick in warrants, and part of that is because of that technology that we're utilizing on the street with license plate readers, also leading to additional arrest and additional arrest within the city on charges that we have based off of that traffic stop. Once we have that individual stopped, a lot of times there's way more than just the active warrant in that vehicle.
makes sense, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Chief. Public Works, Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. I will let my report stand as submitted. One thing from the report I would like to note was that Public Works staff and I believe police staff, along with other individuals, took place in a Touch a Truck event at the Early Education Center there on State Park Road on June 10th. We took a fully set up snowplow truck, the street sweeper, and everybody's favorite, the Bobcat, which is always a big hit with the kids. But this is the second or third time we've taken part in that, and the kids really seem to get a kick out of that. So we'll participate in any time we're asked. Some things not on the report I'd like to point out. I sent everyone an email last week on some positive feedback we received from a resident, former council member. And I don't want to date when he served on the board, but it was pre-Bill and pre-Nathan. So, you know, back in the Stone Ages in black and white TV, or as my kid says, in the 19s. But it was a very nice note on an interaction he had with Rick. He called in concerned about a pothole he had behind his driveway. Rick called him back, said, you know, we're kind of busy today, but we'll get by tomorrow. Rick followed up with that, and then he filled out that nice thank you online and asked for some special recognition for Rick. Now, while, you know, recognition and kudos are not unheard of for the Public Works Department, someone actually taking the time to fill out one of those request forms when, I don't know if you've ever been behind someone whenever they get one of those. It's usually a complaint of some sort that we get. And it was, you know, I was waiting for the punchline as I'm reading through that at the bottom of it of where the ask or where the complaint was. But it was very nice, very refreshing, and just wanted to give Rick his proper recognition here publicly to you guys. And as Kelly and Lee can attest, Rick's pretty thorough. He followed up with them today on some questions they had on the gas line work going over in Ward 1. And as always, Rick's follow up and notice to detail was there in his email. And not just Rick. I mean, I could say this about any of the guys, as Bryce could say if he was sitting right there, that, you know, without Chris, it would be difficult for the public or for the Parks Department to get the pool up and going. And he's always there on a moment's notice. He's the one that gets the call in the middle of the night and is driving the Bobcat down in Ward 4, clearing streets, as everyone's giving them a thumbs up as they go through. So just a kudos for the Public Works Department. And I just like giving a shout out to the guys when I can. And
We'll
that was the
second that.
good.
We'll
And the
second that.
now not so great. Nathan and I met with the city of Mission Hills and their stormwater engineers, I believe it was the 20th of June. And they were doing some work for a conditional letter of map amendment for the Kansas City Country Club. They're, as you guys know, doing some extensive work on their golf course, changing holes up and what have you. Well, Rock Creek does run through that golf course. So some of this work they're doing is in the floodplain. So they had to make sure that they weren't affecting the floodplain in any way. What they did notice is that the base flood elevation on record was inaccurate. And unfortunately, it was inaccurate, not on the good side. it was reported as being lower than it actually is. So that will cause us to need to make a public publication. I don't know if they've given us some sample language of what we would need to file jointly with Mission Hills. Basically, it's a change in the base flood elevation, but it's not, if that makes sense. It was always at this other level. It just was inaccurately recorded whenever we adopted the floodplain maps in 2007. And the ... bigger unfortunate part of that is, as we were going through that, I was looking through homes that were adjacent to the floodplain, and there was one house that was 6/100ths of an inch, so about the thickness of a penny, out of the floodplain, and the base flood elevation is actually going up about 6 inches. So that will not put the house in the floodplain. It was always in the floodplain. It's just inaccurately recorded as being out of the floodplain. And I know that's a lot of information, but after having that meeting and speaking with Nathan, we felt it was best to discuss on the record, and be happy to answer any questions the best way I can. Oh, no questions. Okay, thanks.
Well, no, wait.
I'm
wait.
teasing.
So what I hear you saying is what was recorded showed that house not in the floodplain, but nothing's
Correct.
changed. They are in the floodplain. It was just recorded improperly?
Correct.
Well, damn.
Yes. And as Nathan can attest, and I've had 3 or so weeks to calm down since then, and other things take my focus, but I was very upset with that because we spent a lot of time with an agency studying that reach of Rock Creek with projects that were going on, and to have this be the final result, a big mistake, is very disheartening.
Well, I know you said it will be legally published, but what do we as a city do? Do we contact this resident and have a conversation with them?
We as floodplain administrators, it would be the right thing to do.
Yes, it would. And who's responsible for doing that?
It would be a joint effort. We would obviously send them a letter, something certified, making sure that they got it. And my recommendation, and I'm just kind of walking through this as we talk, is try and set up a time that we can speak with them and maybe even have Mission Hills engineer come in so they can show their exhibits that they prepared for the conditional letter of map amendment, so they can show everything and where it is.
Definitely, Bill. We need to do that. And I would not send the letter to them. I would arrange a meeting and personally deliver it to them. They need to
Okay.
hear it. They need to hear it face to face before they receive this letter in the mail. I would hate that they get the letter first and then we try and meet with them. So if I received a letter like that, I'm not sure what I'd do.
No, the letter wouldn't be telling them what was the situation. The letter would be like, hey, we need to contact you about setting up a meeting to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would not deliver information like that.
Yeah, no, okay, I misunderstood. Okay,
I probably didn't say it clear enough.
no, that's all right. If you need me to attend, I would be happy to.
We'll see
Nathan,
where it goes.
Yeah, I'll let you and Nathan decide
Mhm.
what needs to happen.
Yeah, it's no one likes to be wrong. It's just very frustrating. We spend a considerable amount of money having someone look at this for us, and whenever you're inaccurate and it affects someone else, it really bothers me.
Is this a long-term resident? Have they been in the house a long time?
No,
Okay,
not to my knowledge.
all right. Does anyone else have any questions? Dan?
That was gonna be one of my questions, the length that the resident has been in the house, but I mean, I assume this is a house on State Park Road?
Along State Park Road, yes.
Okay,
I don't think that's where it's actually addressed, though.
okay. And I guess my second, more general question would be, is there any update on the watershed and the watershed meetings? Because I mean, this should be the exact sort of situation that we're setting ourselves up for to have options moving forward. But I mean, again, in my opinion, it seems like that watershed had just kind of been on hold since COVID.
Yes, it hasn't moved through very quickly. We had a Zoom meeting not that long ago, and I know they were promising a face-to-face meeting this summer.
Is there anything we can do to prompt them a little bit? to make
I
this
can reach
happen?
out to SMAC, but you know, we're one of 21 cities in Northeast Johnson County. But I can
Well,
say that there's a desire to meet.
well, I don't care if we're one of 10 or one of 2 or
Yeah.
one of
Oh, no.
100. But we need to
And,
do that.
and one of the other things to note with this is we're going to publish this notification, and then in, I don't know, 18 to 24 months, we'll be doing it again as they're going through and checking all the base flood elevations throughout the county again
Okay,
and updating the maps.
all right. Dan, was that it? Okay, Lee?
So thanks for that, Bill. As all of us that attended that Casey Country Club meeting can attest, the very first question was on Rock Creek and the effects of this project on Rock Creek. So I guess my question, and I don't know if known, not known, but something to think about is, other than this one resident, are there other changes to their plan, anything that might change their answer that they gave us at that meeting, that essentially nothing would be changed with the water flow or, you know, the breadth or length of the channel, any of that stuff, that was not going to be touched? Is there now an understanding that that's not completely accurate? And if they are going to go outside that, and there are other effects, particularly if it's going to be published and people are going to see it, we should be prepared to get ahead of that, I think, because that was
Yeah.
a really hot topic at that
Yeah,
meeting.
the thing to note is this isn't anything that is changing because of them. This was inaccurately recorded to begin with.
Yeah, Lee, they are not going to change the floodplain,
Okay.
which is what they told us in the meeting. What has been discovered is the floodplain was not properly filed. So it's nothing Mission Hills is doing. It's an error from the early 2000s in the filing of the records.
It's not changing their plan.
No,
Yeah, that's.
No,
yes, that remains the same.
Okay.
That was my understanding, right, Bill?
correct.
Anyone else? Jenna?
Thanks for the update, Bill. What recourse do we have, or have you thought about that we have based on the error? Is there contractual
You mean with the company we
language?
worked with?
Correct,
Yeah, they're no longer in existence, so not much.
okay.
David?
Sorry, Bill, I'm just trying to get my arms around so the city of Fairway commissioned a company to determine where the floodplain is, and it is where it is, they determined where it is, but then they wrote it down wrong on the official records. Is that what happened?
They reviewed the data that was given to them, whenever FEMA puts out new firm maps, we get the chance to review the data. We hired them to review the data, and they said it was okay.
And it wasn't.
Correct.
So someone else made an error and they didn't catch it, and then the error just has been on the books for 17 years.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
Kelly?
Kelly Busick, Ward 1. In light of the flooding that happened on State Park Road earlier last week, what are your concerns, and I'm going to piggyback on what Dan mentioned about the water. What are your concerns moving forward, and how can we hopefully get everyone to understand that we need to have answers and solutions so our residents aren't losing their cars and/or part of their properties when we have really bad weather like we did last week? Thank you.
That's a pretty big elephant you're asking me to take a bite of. Are there engineering solutions to solve it? Sure. And I guess the question would be, would the city of Fairway want to spend, and I'm just throwing a number out here, say, $25 million to take $7 million worth of properties out of the floodplain? I don't know what the perfect answer is. It's probably a combination of maybe an engineering solution and perhaps pre-warning, maybe floodgates, something along that line to stop people from driving down to State Park Road. You have a creek that was built really close to a road that's, lower than the floodplain. You can raise the road up, and then you could eliminate most of the houses that are along State Park Road because their topography would change enough to where I don't know if it'd be feasible for them to drive into their driveways or get into their house. There's things like that. Is that what you were looking for?
Not the money part with the 25 million and 7 million. What my concern is how we can feasibly address this, because it's not going to change. We're not going to change the water coming down State Park Road unless we make the channel, make Brush Creek or whatever larger in width to sustain all the flooding. But it just seems that I know it's just going to be a continuous problem, and we need to help our citizens by looking out for them and going to water and whatever committees we need to speak to in the county that you work with to hopefully try to come to some resolution, whether it's something that the citizen needs to do, we need to do, the county needs to do. It's never going to change unless we start making, small changes. And I understand how expensive it is. I absolutely understand that. But it's just chronic, and you know that more than I know that. Thank you, Bill.
Kellyanne, I might just add, I think, as Bill mentioned, they are working on a countywide plan in terms of rolling out new FEMA maps within the next 2 years. And I think it's my understanding that there is going to be some pretty big changes to the floodplain maps throughout the county, maybe not as much here in the Northeast as in other places. But I do think that, I hate to say sit and wait, but that data really should drive whatever sort of engineered approach we look at. And as Bill mentioned, our ability to obtain outside funding is heavily dependent on what we're trying to remove from the floodplain. And the focus will be on moving public infrastructure to keep that out of the floodway or floodplain. And so there will not be a lot of money. If our goal, and I think really it is the same goal, is, if let's say is to raise State Park Road, that'll get a lot of homes out of the floodplain potentially, but it also then removes the road from the floodplain. So when we look at the solutions, it has to be more of in order to receive the outside funding, it has to be closely tied to public infrastructure improvements. And the private infrastructure improvements are sort of the ancillary benefit of the public infrastructure work.
Bill, just to piggyback on a comment that you made, the city of Prairie Village did just raise Mission Road, basically between the shopping center and the Village Presbyterian Church. And the report I read from the recent rains was it performed well, and I think that would be something to investigate, how they did that, since the east side of the creek is in a different city, Mission Hills, whereas if we were to raise State Park Road, the south side of the road is in a different city, Mission Hills. And so they did that, and the road is a lot higher. I know it cost a lot of money. I don't know how much, and I have no idea on their funding, but that, to me, would be something to investigate for a long-term solution, elevating State Park Road like Prairie Village elevated Mission Road. And I don't know if it worked for all the homeowners, because I saw 2 or 3 plumbing type trucks in one of the neighbors, because, you know, now they go down and up to their driveway. It was a big elevation change. But that might be something to tuck away.
Yeah, didn't they look into that once, Nathan, and say it would be raising it significantly so that people would have trouble getting into their garages?
That was a scenario that was played out in one of Mission Hills'
Right.
studies that they did, but
Right.
it was a pretty substantial increase in
Yeah, it was 4 to 6 feet, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And so you're looking into,
Oh, yeah, I'm
A-
not
a
saying
road.
it's a salute, I'm just saying,
yeah.
Bill's comment about raising the road.
Right, and Mission Hills looked into doing that when we went over to UMKC to see what their various solutions were. And it would raise it significantly, not like Mission Road was raised, much higher, much more of an increase. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying,
It wouldn't be much more. We're talking about the same 4 to 6 feet that they did on Mission.
is that
Road
what
there.
they did?
Yeah. That was
Oh.
a big raise that
Oh,
they
was
did
it?
at Mission, yeah.
Oh, well, I've seen it, but that doesn't resonate with me. Yeah, oh, that was a big raise. Well, we certainly don't forget our neighbors, and I don't just mean Ward 1. We don't forget our neighbors on Brook Ridge, and we don't forget our neighbors on State Park Road, which are the 2 really bad areas. It's discussed, and it's just finding a solution, primarily because of the money. And, you know, and as hard as this is to say, I'm going to say it, you buy a home, you've got to ask, am I in a floodplain? And that's awful to say. And if we can help them, we'll help them, but I don't know. Yeah, Lee?
Move to a different topic, but I would echo that this is a disaster waiting to happen down there. The chief can attest to how high the water was, and whether they should have bought the house there or not, we have to respond, and you know, our safety
I
team is
agree.
there, and
I
there are
agree.
health issues, and, you know, we're talking about a day and a half rain caused a pretty substantial problem, so we can't be ostriches about this thing.
And I'm not saying we are,
I know,
Lee.
I'm just
Please
echoing.
don't.
I'm not directing this to you, Melanie, I'm saying, in general.
It could be
that-
taken that way.
I didn't mean it that
Okay?
way.
And I've lived in this city for 23 years. I know what happens down there. And, you know, we're not being an ostrich.
Good, so as long as it's on a radar screen. My question was a different question, it's not so much to Bill, but maybe to the group, and maybe there's an answer to this, and I'm just not aware of it. Bill mentioned that he and Rick did a really nice job for Kellyanne and me of answering some questions about the gas line project that went in Ward 1. I don't know if you guys noticed, but all along Ward 1, you know, big deep trenches in a lot of folks' front yards. And it was a surprise to Kellyanne and me because we are on Chadwick and one of the only streets that is not on this program. So we didn't know about it until it happened. And then, of course, the July 4th parade, we get asked a lot of questions, timing, this, that, and the other thing. So my question, I guess, is there any other way for us to get clued in a little more intimately to those third-party projects like that that are going to take place, that we know residents are going to have questions about, that we wouldn't otherwise know much about if we didn't just see it happening? It looks like they've dug a graveyard in the front yard of about 100 homes.
Corner Canterbury State Park.
Bill, were we told?
Oh, absolutely. The homeowners were all told.
Right.
They were sent letters and then door hangers 48 hours in advance. We worked traffic control with the police department, and I think Nathan was copied on that as well to make sure that he didn't have any issues with it. The city was well aware. This is one of the few times the gas company actually worked with us ahead of time prior to starting the project.
That's good.
Yeah, we did not, I guess, inform Kellyanne and Lee, but we made sure all the residents that were affected were notified ahead of time per our ordinances.
May I suggest that we add, anytime you do work in a ward, you notify the council people?
Sure, absolutely.
That would be fantastic. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, still going back to the water issue here. I'm not cool enough to be in a country club, but it's my understanding, those are two separate country clubs that are kind of separated by the Mission Road, or Mission Hills Bridge, correct? Yeah, okay. So for somebody that was at this meeting, was there any talk of actually improving the channel with this project? Because I think what we've clearly shown is there are things that can be done that helps. In clearing the brush out of the creek, I think the redesign of the Sheridan Bridge, that water's just not getting as high as it used to over there. So are they actually doing anything to improve that channel with this project?
Nathan, do you want to take that one? Okay. Well, fill in my details then. Fill in details for what I'm about to say. And residents on Belinda were aware of this. When I talk about, we went to UMKC to see various designs. I think they had 3 or 4 designs of what to do with that area. It's all in Mission Hills. And they presented them to their residents, right? Now's where I'm foggy because
Okay,
I
yeah.
haven't talked
I know
to
what
Mission
you're
Hills.
talking about
Now
now.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? Okay.
Mission Hills, several years ago, was looking at options for the low water crossing because there needed to be a lot of work, maintenance done to it. And so they looked at various options from just maintaining it as is, tearing it out and essentially creating cul-de-sacs at the end of Fairway and Mission Hills at the creek, or building in a larger bridge that could sustain more flooding.
Or raising the road.
Or, yeah, which would have resulted in raising the road, but the bridge would have gone, the start of that bridge would have gone back to essentially the footprint of the wastewater pump station that's there. That's how big of a bridge it would have been. So it would have caused some significant reconfiguring and, of course, a lot of money. I was not a party to the why, but the decision by the Mission Hills City Council was to continue to maintain.
And to be clear, so I was at that meeting at UMKC, but I see these as two separate things. Mission Hills was thinking about the low water crossing,
Yeah.
and now the country club is doing improvements to their
Right, they are
golf
two
course.
separate things.
But we, as a city, got invited to a meeting with the country club where they presented what they were gonna do?
Yeah, the city got an invitation to attend the reception at the club that I then sent off to the whole council, and several went. But their primary focus is on renovating the golf course, not necessarily doing anything with the creek. So, and it's because it's all private property, the city's hands are somewhat limited in what they can enforce or force the club to do, since it is private.
And the residents that live on State Park Road were invited
Correct. To the country club
to the country club's meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's probably wasn't anything that could be done there at that meeting, but I mean, I would go as far as say, I think the city really, whenever any project is being done down in that area, we should be pushing for improvements as opposed to just some letters stating, we're not gonna make it any worse.
Dan, just anecdotally to answer your question, Mission Hills Country Club did just do a flood project directly east of the low water crossing bridge. We widened the creek, we raised built brand-new walls. This was just a big water event because guess what the irresistible force did? It took out the top level of the brand-new wall. It was just a lot of water. But we widened the creek significantly because otherwise the bridges that were going to get washed out, there was such severe erosion. And it was just a big flood event. And I don't know if it's because the dirt hadn't been compacted yet, but get dirt on both sides of a wall, that spells trouble for the wall. And so the top part of the wall got sheared off. So I think, didn't hear anything at the Kansas City Country Club meeting that says they were going to do any creek bed improvements.
They
but
were
if-
doing nothing to this creek
but-
bed.
But if they're like us and they see an erosion risk to their private property or some of their expensive infrastructure bridge, gonna get they'll do something if they think it will protect their own property.
It might be worth asking him that question, because I got the impression they were so intent upon making sure that they allayed our fears about everything, from grass to the water to everything else, that they basically said, we're not touching it, we're not doing anything. But I think it was Gene Young, first question said, is this an opportunity to take another look at how that works? And obviously, we don't want to make it any worse, but could we make it any better? So whether they thought of it or not, or didn't think of it, if it might be worth asking them, because I think Dan makes a good point. If you're going to go to the trouble to redo this over 2 years, maybe there's a small improvement that could be made that, that would help out. I don't know.
It's on private property though, right?
The club is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Parks and Rec, Nathan?
Yeah, Bryce is not here this evening, so I'll let his report stand as submitted. And if there are any questions that I can't answer, I can relay to Bryce.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Monthly reports of the special committees, Tree Board, Bill?
No report.
Thank you. All right, next is public comment for consent agenda items only. Those are, A, approve the minutes of the previous regular city council meeting. B, approve claims and appropriations, ordinance number 1807 for June of 2024, and approve the mayoral appointments. I would like to make a few comments about the appointments. There are 3. I was really pleased. We had 7 applicants, which is wonderful. Usually we get 0, maybe 1. So we had 7 and had good interviews with everyone. And my appointments are this. Drew Canning, I am appointing for your approval, to the Planning Commission. He is from Ward 2. Drew is an attorney at Hush Blackwell. And Canning. It's in your packet. Okay, yeah. And the second is Gary Young. Gary is from Ward 1, and my appointment for him is to Public Works. Gary is a retired school teacher. And the third is Zach Cleary. Zach is from Ward 2, and he is in sales management with a company called Penumbra. So those are the three individuals. They all are very excited in volunteering for the city and have varying degrees of expertise in those three areas, so I would ask your approval on those. Public comment, anyone in the audience, Nathan? Okay, these items are determined to be routine enough to be acted on in a single motion. However, this does not preclude discussion.
Mayor, excuse me,
Yes,
could you tell me who is being replaced on the planning commission?
yeah, Shay, I don't have that list with me. Yeah. I don't have my planning commission
Is it
list with
Feltzcraft?
me. Yes, yeah, and he resigned because he moved from Fairway, moved south, wanted to move farther south. We haven't had one on Public Works for a while, and then the individual for Parks and Rec, Evan Holcomb. He lives on 62nd Street across from the pool. He and his wife and child and new baby, they have three now, the new baby, I guess was what decided they're moving south too, to a larger home out south. But he will continue to own that home as rental property. Okay?
Mayor, can I just say Drew Canning is going to be so awesome, and he wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't. He just got back from a family trip, but he's super excited.
No, I knew he wasn't going to be here,
But
yes.
he wanted me to let everyone know he's very excited.
Okay, great. Good. Good. Well, I thought so too. That's why
Wise choice.
because I had some very, very qualified people apply for planning commission, so yes, he rose to the top. All right, any other discussion on this, or may I have a motion, please?
Mayor, I move that we approve items A, B, and C on the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Okay, new business. A, consider ordinance number 1808, an ordinance approving a special use permit for a temporary leasing office, trailer with signage at 4100 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Nathan?
Yes, I can speak to this. This is for a temporary trailer to allow for the leasing offices for
Can you
the,
speak a little louder, please?
for the Fieldston development. It has been through Planning Commission. They are recommending that the special use permit be granted through July of 2025. And you can see there will be a wrap on the trailer. There is a visual of that in the packet, but the Planning Commission is recommending approval.
Is there any discussion? Do we have anyone here? Would you like to come forward, please? If you'll give us your name and address, please, and any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, Caleb Holmes with Platform Ventures, one of the developers of the Fieldstone
Okay.
project.
Is that on, Nathan?
Yep, can you turn it?
Sorry.
There you go.
Might not be high enough. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, Caleb Holmes with Platform Ventures, one of the developers.
Okay. Any questions of Nathan?
I had one question based on the planning commission's comments. One of the commissioners asked a question of whether the temporary trailer would be lit on the exterior, not the interior, and I didn't really see an answer to that question. Will it be lit outside?
I don't believe so. I will confirm that, but I don't believe so. Brian, who was here last time, I think commented on that as well with some of the retail lighting. It would not be brighter than that if it were to be lit. And it's only open during business hours as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
I think I've got a few questions. They're probably going to be all over the place here. Do you all own the shops as well?
The retail with the Starbucks
Yes.
behind it, it is owned by a entity that is managed by my firm, Platform Ventures. We're partnered with EPC on the Fieldston development. They do not have any involvement in the retail.
So you don't have a good answer as to why that's 66% vacant?
Good answer. We've been actively trying to lease it. We have had several, potential tenants express interest, but haven't been able to fill it yet.
Okay, and I guess in your own words, why a trailer as opposed to something within the actual building?
We explored that. Those two vacancies are in shell condition. And then there's also issues with minimum leasing terms and the ability with our lender on those two vacant spaces.
Okay, thank you. And I guess, Nathan, for you, what would be the procedure when this runs out if they wanted to keep it there?
They'd have to go back to Planning Commission to get a new special use permit.
Okay.
And then it'd come back to council.
Jenna?
Hi, thanks for being here. So this trailer is intended to be there through July 30th, 2025?
Yes,
Is that
correct.
right?
Next summer, yes.
And then when will there be a permanent leasing office, I assume, in the actual building?
Yeah, it'll be in the northeast corner of the building that you can kind of see being built right now. That's where the team that is going to be pre-leasing before we open will move into there as soon as we get a TCO.
So like August 1st or before that?
Obviously, with construction, timeline's going to fluctuate, but yeah, we've asked for through July 30th of next year to kind of coordinate with when we anticipate being able to open that office.
Thank you.
I have a quick question or two. So Caleb, thanks for being here.
Yep.
The signage in the proposal, those are some big signs. Are they going on top of the trailer or?
No. Just, it's more of a wrap.
Wrap
So,
around.
Yep. Just and it's more, renderings and some advertising with the branding that's very similar to the construction signage that we have at
Gotcha.
the site today.
Okay. And it looks like you're going to take up about maybe 7 or so parking spots. I assume everybody's comfortable with that, the Starbucks tenant and all interested
No
parties?
issues there.
No
Yeah.
issues.
I think the package there's still 36 stalls available.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
I assume there's no one online for public comment? Nope. Okay, thank you. All right, is there further discussion, or is there a motion for this ordinance, number 1808?
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 1808, which is for a special use permit for a temporary leasing office, including a trailer with signage at 4100 Shawnee Mission Parkway.
Been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance number 1808. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to B. Consider CDBG Home Cooperation Agreement Amendment. That was in your packet, Nathan?
Yeah. So I need to just start out by saying this was not on our radar. In fact, I was not aware that the original agreement existed with the city of Fairway. That was about 3 city administrators ago. So I think as I spoke with the mayor about this, I think we need to look into this as an opportunity for what we can use it for in the future. And so I think it makes sense for us to do the amendment, and then that gives us time to go and explore what opportunities are available to us through this program.
Questions or discussion by council? Oh, okay. Public comment? Probably not. Okay.
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve consideration of the CDBG Home Cooperation Agreement Amendment.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the Cooperation Agreement Amendment. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Item C, consider ordinance number 1809, an ordinance amending the designation of public parks in the Fairway City Code, amending and repealing existing section 9-268 of the Fairway City Code. Nathan?
Yes, you have the red line version on the dais in front of you. And this, again, is just to include Kathy Lyon Flora Park as one of our designated parks so that we can enforce park regulations and city code at the park.
Okay, questions, discussion, council? Nope, okay. Public comment? I assume no change, so we'll move along. I'll entertain a motion, please.
Mayor, I move that we approve item C, ordinance number 1809, which is an ordinance that amends the designation of our public parks in the Fairway City Code, and it amends and repeals existing section 9-268 of the Fairway City Code.
Thank you. Second, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Next is our public forum, and that should read 2025 annual budget.
Yep. Yep.
You did? Well, this year's going pretty well. In front of you on the dais is the 2025 budget draft. It has been, it's for all of the budgets, all of the numbers concerning the 2025 budget is what you've seen in our committees. The verbiage has been completed by Nathan, reviewed by Joe and myself. This will be the first time that you guys have seen this. Very similar in presentation to what we've done in prior years. But the budget numbers themselves are as has been discussed with all of us prior to tonight. Nathan, do you want to add anything? I don't know that a presentation with no one here, we've all heard it.
Yeah.
We would be happy to hear it again.
I'm quite fine with sparing you all the very dry presentation that is the budget. I would just point out a couple things in this document that you have before you, and we'll get this added to the website tomorrow so that everybody who wants to look at it can. I'd point you to page 16, which is how we show the breakdown of taxes for the average home in Fairway. The average appraised value in Fairway is $651,000 right now. And so you can see how the math works to get to the annual tax liability. All of that is spelled out there for anybody who wants to see it. And then on the bottom of 16 are just some of the statistics of where we rate in terms of our mill levy across the state of Kansas for cities of the first and second class. So I just want to point that out. If you get residents who are asking, well, how are my taxes calculated? It's right there. And of course, the $1,500 in annual tax liability is only a part of the tax bill. The other jurisdictions would also appear on there as well. I did implement all of the changes that we discussed at the Administration and Finance Committee to include the Petway stations, the consulting services with Federico and Durst, and the crossing guard. All of that has been added into the administration budget under contract or engineer services. And then, as we mentioned at the last meeting, I calculated all of the market adjustments and built those into the 2025 budget. So as you look at the various department budgets and you see the percentages of increase, that is reflective of the market adjustments that we're making in 2024, plus 5% merit for 2025.
While we're on page 16, Nathan?
Yep,
I just noticed this,
yeah, I did too.
okay.
Under the mill rate.
Mill rate should
Yeah,
read 19.930.
Yep,
Not gonna change it.
my proofreaders missed it.
Yes, they did. You wanna fire us?
Nope.
It won't change it by hardly anything, but anyway, we will see that that's corrected for our public hearing
Yep.
in September. This document, you will see it again at that time, when we do have our public hearing to approve the budget. As Nathan said, the only thing that we are approving tonight is setting up that public hearing. We are not approving any of the numbers officially yet. Yes, Jenna?
Question, in the schedule, it says the public hearing is at 6:30, so are we starting the council meeting after the public hearing?
It'll,
Or is it item
it's
one?
within, it'll be
Is
new business number one.
Do we do it the same as?
So it's on, yeah,
Okay.
at 6:30 or as soon as reasonably thereafter. So it will be item one under new business.
Okay.
Thank you.
Couldn't remember, Jenna, how we did it a year ago. Any other questions? Comments? Discussion? Now's the time to do that. Lee?
I'll make a comment. I wanted to say publicly what I said privately to the mayor and to Nathan. I thought you did a wonderful job of pulling together that information on the salary piece, and a lot of work went into that. And I think the council did a really nice job of getting their arms around that, and I think the end result is fantastic. And to me, there's no better investment than in people in any organization or entity. So I continue to fully support us getting our folks back into a salary range that's more competitive with other areas. I do want to just remind us all that what David said is accurate, that the money has to come from somewhere, and it is quite a lot of money. And there are going to be some CIP projects that might have otherwise been funded were it not. So my ask will continue to be that we try to find ways to save money or raise revenues or both along the way so that we can continue to slip some of those projects like refurbishing the tunnel and the streetlight projects and other projects that our residents want back into the plan to the extent that they won't be there immediately. So again, job well done, and let's keep our pencils sharpened and see what we can do.
Anyone else? Jenna?
Just a quick question, I just can't remember. I thought that that there was a project to do Row coming up, and I don't know if that was done when they had that emergency project, but I thought that was gonna happen as a
Bill, are you still on the line?
No, he's not.
Okay, that's okay. I'll circle up with
Yeah,
him.
you should have emailed.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't remember. That's okay. Anyone else? Okay. Item E. Consider Resolution 2024B, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Fairway, Kansas, of the city's intent to exceed its revenue-neutral rate, establishing the date and time of a public hearing on such matter, and providing for the giving of notice of such public hearing. For those of you that are new on the council, do you have any question, well, or anybody that's on the council, but particularly the new individuals, do any of you need further explanation of what the revenue neutral rate is?
I don't have it. Could you just pull up the resolution real quick? I just want to, given the mill rate question on that one page, I want to make sure we have the right mill
We do,
levy rate in there.
yeah.
Okay.
That one I checked several times. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. There it is. Under section 1. And the revenue neutral rate is 18 point, you want to come down a little bit, Nathan? 18.646. That's given to us by the county based on actual revenue collected. That's how the formula is calculated. That changes, and we don't know that number because we don't know the outcomes of appeals and what happens. That's why that number changes. We good to go? All right. Yes, Kellyanne.
Okay. You stop. I've been consistent in my opposition to increasing the revenue neutral rate, largely based on feedback from many of my neighbors in Ward 1 who told me it represented a financial hardship. Many of them saw a 40 or more % increase in their property tax bills from 2017. I'm willing to support a revenue neutral rate increase if Fairway would commit to a hard ceiling of about 2 to 3% annually to cover increased inflationary costs to the city. By adopting this approach, families can budget and plan for this predictable and reoccurring increase. We can't control what other taxing entities do, but this would set a good example to our citizens that we are mindful of their burden of their ever-increasing annual tax bill. Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Certainly may.
We don't increase the revenue neutral rate, the county
I know that.
does. Okay,
But can we base our costs yearly on 2 to 3% of that versus being at 7% or 10%?
what we can do is affect the mill levy rate.
But can't we bring our spending in line to be able to not, I know the county does the revenue neutral rate. I've talked about that, I understand that. However, and that has to do with properties throughout Johnson County and throughout Fairway. But it's still, every year, it's a different percentage of increase in revenue neutral rate. Every year it's different, it's not the same. Why can't we have a budget that would fold in a 2 to 3% increase in the revenue neutral rate? So we don't have to worry that our residents can't afford it, and they're moving, and they're leaving Fairway because they can't afford their property tax.
If I can just maybe clarify, I think what you're asking is, and let's take away the revenue neutral rate. What I think I'm hearing you ask is that the city planned to budget not more than a 3% increase in revenues received through property taxes on an annual basis.
Yes.
So,
Not to exceed what we're bringing.
so essentially, we would look at whatever was collected for 2020. It would have been a 2024 tax collection. We're going to say if it's $2 million, we want to say we're not going to exceed 2025 by 3%, and so then I back out whatever that mill levy would be. So it would be higher than the revenue neutral rate, but lower than the proposed mill levy rate here. So take away the mill levy rates. You're talking about from a revenue perspective is capping the revenue on sales tax by 2 to 3% annually. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
What I'd like to see is the city as a whole, every ward as a whole, to collectively decide, make the decision that we're not going to increase our spending that we're getting the 6.88 or whatever we're getting this year, that being folded into our budget. We need to make choices. This isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable. Every year, it increases or decreases. I mean, we need to set a standard of what we're going to spend within our budget. And I understand inflation, and I understand cost of living, and I understand all the instances that come into what your budget is. And I appreciate all the work you do, I really do. But we have to do something to keep it in control versus it's not the same every year. So it doesn't make any sense to me. I know revenues change, and I understand that. But we have to plan somehow to keep our costs in line so we're good stewards of the monies that the citizens pay to Johnson County and the city of Fairway.
Mayor, could I
Sure.
add something?
Yeah, Joe?
Kellyanne, you have to be aware of our budget process. I know you are, because you participate. We start with the services we provide our citizens. And we went through that exercise committee by committee, saying what services do we want to keep? Do we want to increase them or decrease them? In my knowledge, we didn't say we're going to increase those services. We want to keep them. So that's the expense side of the equation. The revenue side of the equation, there's three basic groups that provide revenue to the city: sales tax, property tax, and essentially all other. And so to the degree that the other than property taxes, which are sales taxes, if we can't get enough revenue from those in order to satisfy the need for our services, we have to take the property tax. And that essentially how it rolls out. And I know that, I'm sure speaking for others, is that we would like to keep it in line as we can. But the number one priority is provide those services for our citizens and then find a way to pay for it. And this is what rolls out.
And your proposal is to work back from revenue neutral or a 2% cap and figure out how much we could fund based on working backwards.
Yes.
Which is basically what we do in a zero-based budgeting
Yes.
process. And if you're going to cap it at 2 or 3, but inflation is whatever, more than that, then you have no alternative but to cut services.
So-
And residents aren't telling us to do that.
And I understand that, Mayor, and I respectfully understand that. But how can we try to, when you see what inflation is and what it's coming down, and you know what that is, and when you're working on the budget, how can we make that in line with keeping our services, but being responsible to the citizens? I don't, people can't afford the property taxes. They can't afford them.
So
And
you-
I know not all of that comes to us. I know part of that comes to us. But with inflation and other costs that people are living in the city, I mean, it's strapping people. People are selling their homes because they can't live within this economy. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to be as proactive to try to help them as much as possible and try to keep our spending and costs in line. And I know services, yes, that's the number one thing in the survey, and I do understand that, but I also think we need to be, I wish, that's all I'm gonna say. But thank you, I appreciate it, I do. And I just need to wrap my head around it because I'm very concerned that it's not gonna change. And it's not sustainable, it really is not sustainable.
Nathan, what percentage of the total tax bill, and it may be in here that I don't recall it, what percentage of the total tax bill is the city's portion?
I believe it's around 16 or 17%.
So of the total tax bill on my house, only 16% of it is Fairway. All right, it's going to take a significant cut in Fairway services because we can't control the county, the schools, the fire department,
I absolutely know that, respectfully, I know that.
okay,
I know,
then what, I'm trying
I
to,
know,
I'm trying to
and
make this
trying to
happen.
too, because
Okay,
you're the budget person. Joe's the budget person. And Nathan, I know you guys know this, but I mean, can we come up with something that can help everyone and not see our citizens leaving who've lived here 30 years, 40 years because they can't afford it anymore?
Okay,
Can I
yes, please.
jump in? Kellyanne, I agree with parts, I think, of what you're saying. I mean, that's probably the best way I can put it. But I don't see this as a Fairway problem. It's every taxing entity, everyone, comes up with reasons to spend every increase in dollar that they get, including Fairway. So while Fairway, could take a stand and lower this, frankly, I think it'd be kind of a drop in the bucket situation. I think the appraisal system in Johnson County is completely broken. They're appraising houses under the assumption that your house is worth this because we're comparing it against the top 2 or 3 sales. But if every single house went up for sale at once, houses wouldn't be worth that. So until that can actually be addressed, I don't think anything below it ultimately gets corrected or fixed. But what I see year after year is no citizens have an issue with this and what we're doing, and I very much believe the citizens are happy with what Fairway is providing them, even if they'd like to save a little bit of money at the end of the day.
If I can comment, Kelly, I appreciate I'd like a nice, slow, flat, budgetable increase every year too. Given the discussion that we just had at our last meeting, and I was saying, where's the money coming from? You know, we're making a market rate adjustment because in hindsight, we've fallen behind compensating our valuable staff, and we always have been at or above the average. And, you know, with someone at, what was the lowest, 9 or 11% of it, that's, I don't think, good. But on the other hand, we've got to catch up. And so if we had an absolute cap, how could we keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, to keep our employees fairly compensated, not overcompensated, but fairly compensated? And we say, well, sorry, we're at our 3% cap. We can't do a market rate adjustment like we're talking about doing, because we would have capped our ability to do that. That would then cascade or lead into, okay, well, we have to increase the salaries to match the market, or at least be competitive with the market. So now, instead of milling and overlaying 6 streets, we're going to mill and overlay 5 or 4. Well, that's going to get an unfavorable reaction from our residents. Going to say, well, why do I have all these whole potholes in my street now? Well, because we tried not to spend as much money. Our challenge as a city is just like our challenge as residents of the city. Unfortunately, prices keep going up, and with prices going up, we have to continue to match that, or else we're going to lose our employees, and we will have worse services because we won't have the caliber of employee that we have now, and we won't have people still complain about our streets because we don't pave them enough. Well, we want to pave them more, we got to raise taxes even more than we're raising them now. So that's where the tension is, to deliver just, and our zero-based budgeting, it took me a while to get used to it. I still have to scratch my head at the start of the year to try to knock the cobwebs out, but we really do. We say, okay, here's what we did last year, what do we want to get rid of? And I haven't heard anyone say we want to get rid of this. Then the question is, okay, to maintain it, just to maintain it, what do we have to do? And unfortunately, just to maintain, we could do a revenue neutral rate. So our revenue stays here, our expenses are here. Now we're operating at a deficit, and that reserve that we worked so hard to build up, it'll go away pretty quickly. And then our employees will say, well, gee, it's now been 10 years since we've had a market rate adjustment. And I look at my exact peer around here, and I can move to Roland Park or Westwood or Prairie Village and get paid $10,000 more for doing the exact same job. And now we're losing our good employees because we didn't raise their salaries to try to keep up with inflation. So that's the tension I think all city governments, all governments plural, meet. And unlike our federal government, which doesn't seem constrained to actually try to match revenues and expenses, we can't operate at a deficit, and we would operate at a deficit if we capped our ability to exceed the revenue neutral rate. That's what we'd be doing. We'd be operating at a deficit, or we'd be slashing services. And I can't, much as I hate to pay more in taxes, I just got my family notice from the mortgage company. my monthly bill's going up because my taxes are up and my insurance is up. Well, why is my insurance up? Well, would you like to stay here for a few hours? Again, unfortunately, insurance costs are skyrocketing more than property, than our costs, just because it's absurd how much it costs anymore to rebuild anything. So it's a challenge that I don't like, that we have to face, but unfortunately we do. And I haven't found the magic solution yet, but I think we do try as a city to do the best we can to keep the increases at the bare minimum, but still deliver and maintain what our residents have come to expect. That's enough for my soapbox.
Yeah, I think if I could weigh in a little bit, I do like where you're going, Kelly. I don't like the cap because I think it ties our hands, and I think we have to do things for like we did for our employees at the last meeting. I think where we can kind of handle that as much as possible is to continue to have those robust discussions in those meetings, like even about our discussion about employees. I mean, that's the most important part of our city, I think. That was a robust discussion because we have those concerns that you raised. I mean, this is unsustainable, but we have to address that at each and every discussion that we have. And I think based on that discussion last week, I think we do a pretty good job. But I do like looking out for our citizens, and like Lee said, watching every penny that we spend and making sure we're spending it effectively. I think that's the best way to do that.
May I? Kelly,
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. It's not easy to share a minority opinion, so I'm really glad that you did. I think maybe the disconnect, and not into what you said, but just generally is, I think our idea is we want to keep providing services, that's the priority of our residents, and it very well may be, but maybe there's also a priority of having lower property taxes. And I don't know how that comes into the budgeting process, because that's not really in my mind. When I'm doing budgeting, I'm thinking about services. And so how do we have those conversations when we're thinking about things? Maybe it's on the enhancement side of things. And to Joe's point, I think we stuck pretty well with just keeping services and not expanding. But if we are talking about enhancements, maybe there's some kind of trigger, reminder. By the way, there's also a priority here of reducing or not exceeding property taxes, and we can be thinking about that at the same time. I just don't know how to work it into the process, because I think we have a good process. I like the zero-based budgeting process. That's my only kind of suggestion.
Yeah, Tanya?
I appreciate the conversation about the accountability. I think what I want to talk about is I think what works well, that we do a good job of, and sometimes it's smaller and maybe we don't notice it in the moment, that we're making some of the thoughts and some of the comments that you made. You know, for example, we came up with an idea that we heard from the survey. It was important to residents to have animal waste stations. It's a great idea, but we found a way, and Bryce had innovation about, well, we could attach that to a dog registration fee. Very small amounts. I mean, those aren't the salaries and the larger expenditures of personnel. But I really appreciate that we have directors and council who are creative and innovative to think about trade-offs. We wanted and needed a bathroom at the park. We started out with an idea, and then ultimately Bryce was able to come up with a solution that was a fraction of what we maybe had projected or received feedback from a contractor on how much the cost is. So what I appreciate is whether it's purchasing equipment or projecting a budget for a piece of equipment and then finding something that's a little bit less, that, you know, here and there, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, that's happening every day. And maybe we need to remind ourselves or reflect on that, because I think maybe we're not recognizing how it happens every month, that we are finding ways to not exceed or be extravagant. We're responsible and accountable every month when we think about that. So just wanted to remind folks, I think we do a good job, but maybe we don't always take time to notice in the moment that that was a good choice.
Anyone else? And Kelly, I hear and understand what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out a way we can accomplish it is what I'm struggling with. But part of it, part of what I see on a daily basis happens to be, I was finance chair for so many years, 9 years, and then as mayor for 6 years. So I'm seeing the numbers and what, I'm signing the checks, and I'm having conversations with Nathan, because they don't just spend, well, the budget's there, so we'll spend it. And when we see Bill bring in a project under budget, and to Tanya's points that she raised, and I know what the chief does when he goes out to buy these computers. He's got old computers, but he's not buying the Taj Mahal, computers. And Nathan does the same thing. I mean, he looks at the whole thing, and they're very critically analyzing. They just don't spend because the budget's there. So now, if we had, and that's part of having the quality staff that we have. So they do that every day, and you don't see it every day, I see it every day.
Mayor, I am aware of what our staff does every day, and to Tanya's point, I'm aware that we're solving problems, and we're cutting, and we're being innovative, and we're thinking outside of the box. I totally appreciate that more than anyone. I respectfully say that. I really do. But I just think that to Dan's point, or to everyone's point, if we had people sitting here, 25 people who said, what are you gonna do? Would that then cause us to think more outside of the box? Or would we stick to what we're doing right now, and or just I know Topeka has to do their part, the county has to do their part, we have to do our part. And I'm not saying about to slash certain costs, because I understand what we need and what the services we provide our citizens. However, there has to be some type of way that we can help in any way, shape, or form to make things not as expensive to live in Fairway. Not as expensive. And we don't have Houlihan's. We're still dealing with that. There are a couple other stores that still don't have people in there, and that's revenue that we're losing.
Right, and that's First Washington.
Yep, we're losing a lot of revenue. And so that revenue there would be helping us in the city, and I understand that. And I thank you all for your conversation and your thoughts and your expertise, because I'm very grateful and very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, and I know this is not what you're proposing, Kellyanne, but it would be interesting to know to what degree our residents are finding themselves in that position. I don't know how you determine that, but if it's one, it's one too many, but if it's a substantial number, then, the problem gets bigger as that group gets bigger. I know that in other places, and this is out of my area of expertise, but that there are targeted programs for some folks to help them stay in their home that may not be practicable in Fairway. Maybe you can't qualify, but I wonder if we found that there were a lot of folks that were in that situation, and maybe it's at the, it's when you get older and you're retired and trying to keep up a house, whatever the circumstances are, if there aren't some creative ways to help individuals with their personal struggle, which would be, I guess, in addition to or on top of what you're proposing. I don't know the answer, but I do know there are programs in some places that try to attack it that way at the individual level.
And I think the county has some of that, like, that we do 2 of those
We
programs,
do 2 of
right?
them, yes, we do.
Yeah, smaller programs, but yeah.
We participate.
Good.
Can I also note, to that point, the legislature just passed in their tax bill not taxing Social Security, and there's a few other things that should help people who maybe will be in that category where it's really burdensome, just property taxes are burdensome, yeah.
And I may be wrong, but I think largely those 2 programs, we have very, very few residents that would actually
That qualify.
qualify.
That's correct.
If any.
We have had some. But very few. because there are qualifications. But we, and staff, when I say we, I mean staff refers residents to those programs. Yeah. Those are county programs. Okay. Is there anyone on public comment? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion for Resolution 2024B.
Mayor, I move that we approve item E on new business, Resolution 2024-B, which is a resolution of our governing body to exceed the revenue neutral rate. It will also establish the date and time of a public hearing on this matter and provide for the giving of notice of the public hearing.
Been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 2024B. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed?
No, in protest.
Pardon?
In protest.
In protest. Okay. There are 7 yeses, 1 no in protest. Got that, Nathan? Okay. All right. Governing body comment. During this time, members of the governing body will be given the opportunity to speak about matters related to the city. No formal action will be taken during this time. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I do.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the Consolidated Fire District 2 for being our escort for the Ward 1 July 4th Parade. They do a wonderful job, and they provide music, which is really exciting for the kids. And I'd like to thank Chief Thurlow for being our lead of the parade and our escort. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
That was good timing.
That's what happens when you can't.
Funny.
Anyone else? Comments? All right, we'll close the governing body comment section. No public comment, when no one's in the audience, and I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Pardon? We are adjourned.
We didn't sign this. We didn't sign that. We just signed.
Well,
Thank you.
I wasn't given it. I didn't know it was there. Okay, we're done. Thank you, guys.